Welcome back, everybody, to SPANK'UM Chess. I am B Hood, and here's another game when I'm going to be showing you how you can handle when you're playing against the King's Gambit. I had a previous video where I showed that, but this is another one, so let's check it out. Before we get into today's video, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to hit that like button, pound that subscribe bell to get instant notifications, and leave a comment, because every comment and every notification, every subscription means a lot to me. So please go ahead and hit that, and let's get to it. The starting goes out e4, knight to c6. We always start with the Nimzovich defense. That's my personal recommendation. And your opponent goes f4. So in that when your opponent plays f4, the King's Gambit, they're expanding in the center, and they have that vicious. It can be very vicious, and he has a pathway for his queen to come down and be attacking this loose pawn here, and that bishop to come out. So you want to get your opponent to respond. So
you said bullshit and experience is all it takes, right?
Right.
My recommendation is, boom, e5.
Come on and experience some of my bullshit.
e5, he needs to do something. Your opponent needs to do something in this particular situation. We're going to go with the Adelaide Counter Gambit. When your opponent plays knight to f3, and here's the key move here, f5. Remember, I always tell you about the f4 and f5. What do we call the f4 square and the f5 square? We call it the fu square. So with this f5 push, I'm saying, man, fu. What are you going to do?
I'm going to make him an offer again.
My opponent chooses to go capture on f5. E takes f5. So now that gives me the impetus to go ahead. Let me back this knight up. Now, white has a couple of options here. He has knight to e5. He can actually go knight to g4, g5, g5. Those are some of the moves that he can make. But what does my opponent do? He blanks a blunder move and goes bishop to c4.
You stupid fuck!
Now, sometimes it can throw you off guard. That type of move can throw you off guard. And it can cause you to make blunders too. Look what I do.
Say what?
Knight to f6. Clearly was a free piece. I put my opponent back into the game. He could go queen to e2, and oh man. But look what happens. He castles on the king side. And with that, I recognize my blunder, and I take e captures on f3. He captures back with the queen. So at this particular moment, I see that my opponent could be plotting to get some sort of check. So I make a preemptive move with bishop to e7. So now the top move, if we look at it, the top move is bishop to c5 check, king to h1, d5. What I do is I go here to just because I see this preemptive move. That's what I was thinking, and that's the difference between me right now at 1570. And what's ironic with all of that is the fact that I've been higher rated and I still make these type of mistakes. So it's always good to check up on your game. So look at what my opponent does. My opponent goes d4. D4, ladies and gentlemen, he wants to open up his dark square bishop, but as you see, the pawn on f5 is thwarting that. He has nothing. It's biting on granite. So I go d5. Let's stop all of that. Let's just stop that. And if you look at this particular pawn structure here, he has a double pawn here. This is not going anywhere. He's going to have a hard time, and I'm threatening that I can capture I can go up there. My opponent, he backs out easily, and I take the time to grab up the free lolly on f5. So again, I say fu to him. He brings rook to e1, putting a little pressure on the bishop there. Possibly trying to double up, get his queen down there, double up, and have my knight because my knight is pinned. But I easily slide out of that with castle on the king side. Now, as you can see, I'm threatening. Knight captures on d4, so he captures my knight. I capture back. And now I'm still eyeing the pawn on c2. So here's the error here. My opponent goes to e3. Queen at e3. So the queen at e3, he's putting pressure on the bishop, my dark square bishop on e7. But I have a good, nice little tactical line that I dreamed up, that I thought up, to where I could get a piece out of the game and relieve some pressure. Bishop to b4. Bishop to b4, ladies and gentlemen. The bishop to b4 move is threatening the rook, and causing him, he's gonna have to do something because rook to e1 will be coming next. So he goes c3, rook to e1. I do apply rook to e1, so that's gonna buy me a tempo. This is moving with tempo. Queen to g3, queen captures, and I bring my bishop back to d6. So now with my bishop back to d6, what that did, look at it here, ladies and gentlemen. So when he goes queen to e3, so he's looking to try to give some counterplay. We trade out and he gets his rook down on the bottom of the board. However, the bishop to b4 move caused him to do something. Rook to e1 was going to come with tempo. And when you play passive, this is what happens when you play passive. Now, the number one move, they say the top candidate move is c3. What the c3 did that I also saw was him going to have to bring his knight to an unnatural square. Knights usually come to f3 and c3 naturally. It's just a nice advancing play, and you're closer to the center of the board. You're moving to the third rank and not the second rank. So what that did was buy me some time so I can come up with this. Boom. So he goes queen to g3. I capture, he captures back. Now I go bishop to d6. So now I'm also putting pressure on to the fu square, the fu pawn. So now his knight, if his knight jumps into d2, I can capture that. So he goes queen to back to queen to g3. There's another error. He's moved that. That was 3 moves right there. So first, let me gain the tempo on the queen. Knight to e4, threatening the queen. The queen goes to, his queen goes to e3. So he's moved from e3 to g3. You see how I'm keeping him on there, and I'm keeping my opponent from getting his other pieces out. My pieces are very, very, very active.
That is strength, boy.
I see that his queen and his king are on a diagonal, and I have my dark square bishop.
That is power.
So I wanted to open that up. And possibly, now remember, I've said to you before that when you have a double pawn, technically it could be, there's a downside because it is a double pawn, so it could be rendered useless. But if you use it tactically, it could become not a liability but an asset. So he sees that. My opponent sees that. My opponent gets his king out of the way. Rook to b7. Because I'm trying to get him to bite to take that piece. That was the motive behind that prophylactic move. And keeping his bishop pinned in over there because he has to protect the pawn on b2. Knight to a3, which, you see what I'm saying? The unnatural square.
The fuck's that mean, grunt shit?
That is an unnatural square for a knight to be on in this particular situation right here. Even though I have a set of double pawns, but all my pieces are very, very active, and his king is trapped in the corner. So, see captain on d4. Now he captures back with the queen. And there is a true error right there. Bishop to c5. So now he's got to do something. He's going to lose the queen because his queen is going to have to go to a light square because I'm dominating the dark squares with that bishop. The key move was the bishop to b4, threatening his rook and him going c3 because that put his knight on an unnatural square. It put his knight on an unnatural square. If he would have went to either way, my rook was going to come to the center and I was going to capture, take one of his rooks. But if he would have moved his rook or his bishop, he would have had another piece off its original square. And there was the lack of development. That lack of development aided me. So now, what does my opponent do? My opponent goes queen to e5. Queen to e5, and there he just loses. Top move is queen to h4. There's a mate and 9 from this moment. I didn't see it.
You stupid fuck!
I didn't see the mate 9. But I saw that I can capture the queen. And you can see it here. Knight to f2 check. King to g1. And there it is there. My opponent flag there. I gained the queen and the game. So this was just another one to show you how you can handle when your opponent plays the king's gambit. When your opponent goes for the king's gambit, e4, knight to c6. This is what I play. When my opponent, if my opponent plays e4, I go knight to c6. I want to get them into something that they don't see often. F4, you go e5. You go e5 and challenge. Knight to f3, you go f5. F you, man. F you. They capture, you capture back, and it is a game, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. And I'll see you the next time. I'm B Hood. This is SPANK'UM Chess. Peace.
Hi, y'all.
Here we go again.
Dynamic and tactical game. 83. And now, here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to SPANK'UM Chess. I am B Hood.